As you know, we absolutely love basketball season here at Locked On Blue Devils. We're 20 some odd days away from the start of the Duke men's basketball schedule at the college level. But what about the Duke guys that go on to the NBA? We always pay attention to them, the brotherhood in the league. As a new NBA season is upon us, let's talk about some of the stars of the NBA here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils.
Fights out. Hey, make sure you listen, man, to Locked On Blue Devils with JJ Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. It's so great to have you here with us on this Thursday, October 20th, 2022. We're getting so much closer to the start of the Duke men's basketball season. The Duke NBA season is off and running. A couple of games on Tuesday night. Man, we had so many games last night across the association, and we've got several Duke men's basketball players. The brotherhood in the NBA, we're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the podcast. If you haven't done so already, subscribe and follow us wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show daily on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at LO_Blue Devils. Your support means the absolute world. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. As we get going here on today's episode of the program, very happy to bring on my good buddy Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. And Josh, as we get started here today on the program, it's just really exciting to have another NBA season here off and running.
Yeah, and starting up a little bit earlier than what a typical NBA season would start. They're doing that to try to have fewer back-to-back games and trying to help the workload overall, these players. And so, hey, listen, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with the, what is it? I think it started on the 18th or 19th of October, as opposed to basically November 1st or 2nd, as what it typically would be. But yeah, NBA basketball is back, and man, there are a good number of former Duke basketball players, obviously, not only in the league, but just high production guys in the league.
Yeah, no, we got to the point last week where we had 29 former Duke men's basketball players on NBA contracts. That number did dial back a little bit as the regular season is here. Training camp rosters had to be cut down. Unfortunately, for a couple of Duke guys, they're going to have to go to the G League, play overseas a little bit, or just wait for that next phone call. But 25 plus guys still in the league from Duke University playing at the next level, Josh. And it's crazy to think about kind of where we're at. You go back even 10, 15 years ago, there wasn't this just sheer volume of Duke players in the NBA. What do you think that says about the job that Coach K and this program have done getting guys to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, it plays to the recruiting philosophy that K, had kind of taken on over the last 10
Amen.
to 15 years. And obviously with recruiters like Chris Collins, Jeff Capel, and then obviously the new head coach, John Shire, you have those guys that were leading a lot of these recruiting battles. And recruiting the guys like the Jason Tatums, of the world, and the Zion Williamsons and the RJ Barretts. And so when you're recruiting those high level guys, yeah, you know what you're getting. You're getting them for 1 year. You're hoping to ride that talent train as far as it will take you, and then you get the excitement of watching these guys be successful in literally fulfilling their dream. For many of them, it's been something they've worked for a guy like Jason Tatum. I mean, that was something he started working on when he was a kid. I mean, with his relationship with Bradley Beal, and had a guy a little bit ahead of him, kind of showing him the way. And then you have other guys that are like, woke up today going, holy crap, I'm on an NBA roster like Jack White. So there's a whole gamut of it, different stories, and everybody's got their own unique path that's taken them to where they're at. And it's really cool as Duke fans to be able to follow these guys after they leave Durham.
Yeah, the brotherhood is just outstanding, getting these guys all across the league, and knowing that Duke has infiltrated so many NBA locker rooms over the years has been a whole lot of fun. I'd love to hear from Duke fans in the comments what you think the biggest reason is, the biggest shift. I know a lot of people want to talk about the transition into the one and done era, and that really does have a lot to do with it. I would imagine when you're recruiting the top tier level talent, that's certainly going to pay off in the long haul. For the longest time, the narrative on the outside looking in was Duke's got all these amazing college players, but what in the world do they amount to in the NBA, right? If you're going strictly NBA careers, traditionally, I think Grant Hill would probably be the name that people would want to offer you as the best Duke guy. And then in 2011, the number one player in the country and Kyrie Irving decided to play basketball at Duke University. And while he only had 11 games in the uniform, he's the number one overall pick. He's won an NBA championship, a multi-time All-Star, proudly repping Duke. And ever since then, more players have come to play for Duke. While it's only been for one season, then they're able to use that as a vehicle to get to the league and the association. And thus, we're having better NBA careers. Is all that fair to kind of sum up and assess, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Grant Hill. I mean, let's just take it a little bit deeper. From 1992, 1991, when Grant Hill showed up at Duke, until J.J. Redick left Duke. I kind of see that as the pre-one and done, right?
Right.
So you have J.J. Redick that had a solid NBA career. You had Carlos Boozer,
Right.
Shane Battier, Elton Brand, and then you have Christian Laettner and Grant Hill. At the end of the day,
Right.
think about it, and that's like how many years is that? 15 years
Yeah.
almost. Like it's crazy and wild to think that and now it's like every single season there's one or more guys that are not just making rosters, but that are making an impact on rosters. And listen, Duke fans can debate back and forth of like, have we traded away maybe some 3 and 4 year talent that maybe could have won us some more national championships in order to bring in these guys? And hey, listen, I'll have that conversation with anybody. I think it's a worthy conversation to have. But at the end of the day, it still is cool when one of your guys is the number one overall pick, or one of
Yeah.
your guys is rookie of the year, or one of your guys signs a max extension. Like that's a really cool thing. And Duke fans, it has caused me to like dive into the NBA. I've always been an NBA fan, but like these last few years have caused me to just become like obsessed with it.
Which is a great thing. I mean, I think that's a
Yeah.
great problem for us to have. You mentioned kind of the names that we had from early 90s till the end of J.J. Redick's career, and you mentioned sort of the big names out there. We want to give all the love and respect to the Dante Jones, the Corey
Yes.
Maggettis, the Mike Dunleavys of the world,
Sheldon
the Chris
Williams.
Duhans, Sheldon Williams, all
Yeah.
the, like, we know the names, Duke fans. Don't come at us. We know the names that have been out there. But, okay, now we can talk about names like Kyrie Irving, like Jason Tatum, like Zion Williamson, like Paulo Banchero. You mentioned number one overall picks. Oh, yeah, Duke just did that as we get started for a new season of the NBA. So it's awesome to see what's happening. Let's talk a little bit more about those big names and star power, and we'll do that after our first time out here today. Locked On Blue Devils here today. JJ Jackson with you, and our proud presenting sponsor is BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for football betting information this season. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game. This Saturday, Duke football takes on Miami. Our friends over at BetOnline have the Hurricanes favored as a 9-point favorite. I'm hoping Duke can pull off the upset in that one. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet Online, where the game starts. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, JJ Jackson here with my buddy Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. And Josh, talking about the big names, the stars of the NBA that also went and played at Duke University. Kyrie Irving was someone that we discussed earlier. Jason Tatum coming off a first-team All-NBA season. Only 5 players get that distinction in the NBA. And Jason Tatum was a first-team All-NBA player a year ago. He gets set for another season in Boston.
Yeah, and then coming off the finals, right? Coming off the NBA finals, winning the Eastern Conference, and then really putting up a good fight there. I feel like they kind of ran out of gas a little bit against Golden State, but I mean, they are a talented bunch. And so, I mean, I think you have to start with Jason Tatum. I mean, Jason Tatum is the top tier talent, proven talent. I say that because I'm about to mention another name who could be there in 2 weeks, and that's
Yeah.
Zion Williamson. Zion is in shape, and he is ready to go. And so it's going to be very interesting and fun to see just how good he is. And so before we logged on and started, JJ, we mentioned those three guys are kind of like the obvious three. Kyrie with the shoe deal. And, you can say whatever you want to about Kyrie's personal life, and I get it. I get all the criticism. But he is prominent. He's a predominant figure in the NBA. So
And he's just been doing it the longest. I mean, 2000, it's over a decade now that he's been at the league and at the next level.
Absolutely. And the dude's got handles that only Steph Curry can touch at this point. So, so you've got Kyrie, you've got Jason Tatum, who is just incredible. And then you've got Zion, whose potential is legitimately through the roof. But then I believe if we're going to go tiers, I think also rounding out tier one, I think you've got to add two players in, and that's RJ Barrett, who has a different game. RJ has that kind of that cold, like, I'm going to do the dirty work. Like, to me, Tom Thibodeau and RJ Barrett is like a marriage made in heaven. Like, those guys were made for each other because Tibbs is hard on his guys, and I feel like Barrett thrives on someone being hard on him. So Barrett, and then I believe you got to say Brandon Ingram, the pride of Kinston, North Carolina. My man rocking the like straight up 1973 fro. I mean, he's ready to roll. It is going to be very interesting to see if Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson both stay healthy this year, how they're able to coexist on the floor together, or if it has to be something where they kind of stagger those guys because there's not so much room on that court, and both of those guys take up a lot of room. Ingram because of his length, and Zion because of his strength. Wow, that rhymed. So
look at that, yeah, and only one basketball to share as well.
Yeah. With CJ McCollum,
CJ McCollum to factor in. I mean, that's a young team that is going to be fun to watch for sure. I can't wait for just another season of hopefully full continued health for Zion. The recovery has been unbelievable. The shape that he's been the entire preseason has been noticeable. And there's just, when you watch, he's a true performer. We hear our guy JJ Redick talk about the performers out there on the basketball floor. Nobody's doing what Zion's doing night in and night out to be that big and to have the athleticism, jumping ability, touch around the rim and everything like that. Nobody's doing it like Zion is. And so as basketball fans take the Duke things out of it, everyone benefits from getting to watch him play.
Yeah, and I think one thing we're seeing in the preseason, his interaction with the media, what they're catching on the bench and at practice, what you're seeing with Zion, you're seeing that smile. You're seeing that like that kid that was at Duke for a year. I mean, when Zion Williamson was at Duke with RJ and Cam and Trey and those guys, I mean, it was like he was at summer camp.
He was giddy the whole time.
He loved it. And I feel like we're getting a little bit of that guy, that lovable, like he was like the most likable one and done I believe Duke has ever had. And so I think the NBA, the haters of Zion, the ones who always talked about his weight or that always were the naysayers, he will win them over by staying in shape, keeping his smile, and then, obviously staying injury free. And then I think you're going to start hearing things like, man, MVP in a couple of years, like Pelicans deep playoff run, like, anyway, I think he's got so much potential, and I just can't. I'm enjoying watching him have fun again.
Yeah, we put 5 out there on the tops of this Duke team. I said we got 20 plus to got to go through, and we certainly don't have the time on today's podcast. We'll give you updates throughout the entire season here on Locked On Blue Devils. Please make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. But Kyrie getting the love that he deserves, playing in Brooklyn. There aren't the vaccine mandates and everything off the court like you were talking about. That was a bit of a distraction from his playing ability the past season. He's back. Tatum's doing his thing. Brandon Ingram, you mentioned it. If you haven't seen it yet, he's rocking an afro. Don't let that throw you off. He's still out there getting buckets. Zion, And then Zion's teammate, his running mate at Duke, RJ Barrett, another season with the New York Knicks, just got a big payday. What do you think about RJ as he gets set for a new season?
Well, I mean, he's got a lot of pressure on him now. I mean, New York fans, right? You pay a guy, and they want to see you, put it out there on the court. And so, I think it was interesting. I think a lot of people thought that Donovan Mitchell was gonna wind up being a Knick, this offseason, and he wound up going to Cleveland. And so I think that would have been an interesting, duo there. But I think RJ. I think at the end of the day, and this is not taking anything away from RJ. I think if the Knicks want to be legitimate players in the East, they're going to have to go out there. They're going to have to land somebody. They're going to land somebody in a trade or somebody in free agency, because RJ. I think it's fair to say that RJ probably is not your one on a deep playoff team. He's probably your two on a deep playoff team. You need a guy. You need a dominant, legit superstar, especially in the East. I mean, you look at the East, man. Like Brooklyn. Philly, Milwaukee, Boston, I mean, all of those,
Miami,
man, they're superstars on those teams,
right?
So, and we'll see. I'm not taking anything away from RJ. I'm saying that he's gonna have some help if New York is gonna get to where they want to go.
Yeah, for so many of these Duke guys as well, we see them for one season, right? And it's their freshman year. They're 18 and 19 years old, Josh. And then just you get to the next level, you work on your body. These guys look physically different than what they did, as they should, right? They're growing up. They're spending a lot of time in the weight room and that sort of thing. RJ is a grown man out there now at this point as he gets set for another season in the league. Efficiency has always been the biggest thing, I think, with him, making sure you can be an efficient playmaker, shooter, scorer at the next level, and that's going to dictate the success he has. All-star teams could potentially be in his future. I think if he could just be a little bit more efficient, and we'll see if he's able to do that this season.
There was a story at Duke, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There's a story at Duke. It's the same thing. He was a volume shooter. He doesn't have to be quite the volume shooter in the NBA that he had to be at Duke. But yeah, you're right. If he could just shore that up a little bit. And luckily, the NBA is starting even more so, I believe, to value things other than just your points per game. They're starting to understand the value of a strong perimeter defender, which RJ is. They're starting the value of being able to draw fouls, which RJ is one of the best in the league at doing. You know what I mean? There's little things like that RJ is like elite at, in my opinion. And so he's obviously carved himself a spot in the league, but you're right. If he could become a little bit more of an efficient scorer, then my guy's an all-star.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what this upcoming season looks like for RJ and so many other former Duke Blue Devils. The Brotherhood taking over the association. We love to see it. We'll wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils here in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils proudly brought to you by SweatBlock. SweatBlock was created by a doctor to help with his own excessive sweating. It is doctor created and doctor recommended. A customer review submitted by Chris, who suffered from excessive underarm sweat for 10 years. He was so worried about sweating through his dress shirts that he started tucking maxi pads in his shirt to soak up the sweat until he found SweatBlock. SweatBlock changed the game for him, and it can change the game for you as well. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, try SweatBlock. Save 20% with promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. It's also available on Amazon. All right, as we wind down today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, I'm JJ Jackson alongside my buddy Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. 20-plus guys in the league. We kind of talked about the big names out there. What else do Duke fans need to know about the upcoming season in the NBA, Josh?
Yeah, it seems that only one of our guys has switched teams in the offseason. Austin Rivers, who is no stranger to moving around the league, is in a really, really solid spot, man. He's with those Minnesota Timberwolves who, Anthony Edwards, now Rudy Gobert with Cat. Like, that's an interesting group up there. And so Austin Rivers has been, look, I mean, I know that for me and some other Duke fans, he's not our favorite, Duke player other than the shot, right? The shot has endeared him to everyone. But he had kind of a tumultuous time at Duke. But, man, if my guy's not gone in the league and made himself a valuable part of any team that he has been on. And so, like, shout out to Austin Rivers. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to do this year. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the Clippers, and that obviously impacts Luke Kennard. Luke got paid a year ago. This team has added John Wall. This team has added, I think, Norman Powell. I think he was added last year, but he's on that team. Obviously, you got the big two, there with PG and Kawhi. If they can stay healthy, that could be an interesting team, man. They could make some serious noise, and Kennard's just the kind of guy, to come off the bench and hit 6 or 7 threes, just out of nowhere.
No doubt about that.
He's the one. Those two guys initially thinking that. I mean, how can we talk about this and not be like Jack White, man? Like, how awesome! Like, and I don't know that this is the case, but he played for the Australian national team,
right?
And he played really well. And it was as soon as that was over that he got the invite for Summer League. And people say Summer League doesn't matter. Jack White would tell you that it matters because he played his heart out and he earned that spot. And man, how cool is it? I mean, I think it's great for him he's shooting the ball exceptionally well. I think they had a shooting competition in practice I saw on Twitter, and he won for the whole team. And I mean, that's a team I'm assuming Jamal Murray was out there shooting with him. I don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm super pumped for Jack, and there are plenty of others, man. Whoever you want to talk about, I'm good to talk about them. But those guys just kind of set out in my mind just for the uniqueness of the situations.
3-point shooting is my absolute favorite thing in the whole wide world. So do want to give some 3-point love to Duke guys at the next level, whether it's Grayson Allen with the Milwaukee Bucks, what Gary Trent Jr. does for the Toronto Raptors. You mentioned Luke Kennard with the Clippers, Seth Curry with the Brooklyn Nets. I think AJ Griffin is going to be one of those guys with the Atlanta Hawks this season. You've got the entire rookie class. 5 Duke players are now going to be rookies in the league. And again, we'll have plenty of time throughout the season to talk about how their seasons are going so far and that sort of thing. But those are the guys to be on the lookout for. 3-point shooting in the rookie class. Is there anything you wanted to add there?
Not about that specifically. I've got one more thing I want to talk about before we go. But yeah, I think AJ Griffin is going to be an interesting one. Because we saw AJ Griffin like 75, 80% AJ Griffin. And it's going to be really, really cool if AJ Griffin is like at 100%. I can't wait to watch him be able to play without thinking. And I think he had to think. He was constantly thinking last year. And so I'm looking forward to seeing him if he gets to 100% to be able to see what we missed for a season in Durham.
My last thing, and then we'll get to what you've got for us. And maybe this is the same thing. But I do want to give some love to the most underappreciated Duke players at the next level. They don't give you the most crazy highlights, but they take care of the basketball, and that's the name of the game. Tell folks what the Jones brothers have coming up this season, Josh.
Yeah, they play each other this season. I think 4 times. And you have Trey and Tyus, who, I mean, are the assist to turnover ratio kings, right?
Of the entire NBA.
Of the NBA, period. I am waiting for one of those, and I know that Tyus just signed a deal with Memphis. Obviously, Ja's not going anywhere. Ja's a superstar. But I just want to see those guys get handed the keys to a team. I would love to see them just get the trust of an organization and say, listen, we don't need 25 points a game from our point guard. Like, we need you to be just a traditional good point guard. And man, there's not two more capable guys to take care of the basketball and distribute and get your team involved than Trey and Tyus. That's for sure. That wasn't where I was going.
Tyus Jones with the Memphis Grizzlies, Trey Jones with the San Antonio Spurs. So where are you going to wrap us up today?
All right, I'm wrapping up with what I think is going to be a sneaky League Pass team.
Okay.
You know what a League Pass team is, right? It's a team that
absolutely
that would tempt you, if you have not already. It would tempt you to get League Pass just to watch their games. Okay. Now, obviously, the New Orleans Pelicans are on there. Okay, so that's not who I'm talking about because they've got 2 Blue Devils, and they've got CJ McCollum, and they've got Herb Jones, and I mean, I should have even started. They have a lot of guys I enjoy watching play basketball, but I've got a sneaky pick, and that is the Orlando Magic.
All right.
That's a sneaky league pass team. We have two of our guys down there, and number 1 overall pick Paulo Banchero, in rejuvenated Wendell Carter Jr., Horace Grant, as he's
Right.
looking
Sporting
like,
goggles. Yeah.
sporting the white goggles, looking like Ho Grant. But I like their team. I think Markelle Fultz has a lot to still prove. I mean, that was a former number 1 overall pick, part of
Yep.
the process in Philly that never panned out. Got his second chance down in Orlando. You got Trey Jones's son, Cole Anthony, down there, who's carved him out himself a good career so far. You got a guy like Jonathan Isaac, that kind of stretch big, can do everything kind of a guy. And then you've got some vets,
They got the
couple of
Wagner
vets on that
brothers
team.
who are
The
playing
Wagners,
well.
oh, bro.
Yeah.
The Wagners are incredible. Isn't it? Who else is on that team? There's a vet, like a defender, like Tony Allen type guy. I forget who it is, but he's down there. Mo Bamba, who's like, you're just waiting. Like, the guy is built for the NBA. Like, when is it going to click? And then you got Paulo. And what this team had been missing is that dog. That's like, there's 7 seconds left on the shot clock. We are not gotten into our set. We need somebody to hit a shot. And man, they drafted him number 1 overall. And I think they're looking at that, thankful that they drafted him instead of the other options that they had. But I think that Orlando Magic, sneaky. I'm not saying they're going to contend in the East. I do think they can be a playoff team. And I think they're going to be fun to watch, barring injury. So that's my sneaky Duke League Pass team.
At this point, I'm just going to give people the entire roster because we almost had it already. But the notable names, of course, Bol has made an appearance in Orlando, which
that's right.
He's just an anomaly physically to watch someone that large to shoot the way he does and that sort of thing. Jalen Suggs was a top pick that they had
2 years ago.
And then Terrence Ross is kind of the old wise pro
Terrence
with
Ross.
Gary Harris as well. Gary Harris is another big guard for them over the years. So yeah, check out Magic basketball. And also Locked On fans, we've got the Locked On Magic podcast.
There you go.
Make sure you check out as well. So
cross promotion. That's
exactly.
Nice.
That's what we love. That's what we absolutely love. Josh, thank you so much for the time spending it with me here today. Let people know about the Section 17 podcast or where they can find it.
Yeah, I mean, at the Section 17 podcast, we talk football. So if you're a football fan, especially a Duke football fan, check it out. DukeFootballTalk.com, Section 17 podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Go right now and give a 5-star rating and review for Locked On Blue Devils and what JJ does here. And then if you'd be so kind to give us a 5-star rating and review, we would appreciate it.
We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Thanks, JJ. Have a great week, man. Go Duke.
All right, that's my buddy Josh Cox joining us from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast. Basketball season is here. They're playing basketball, and there's a lot of Duke guys in the NBA doing it for this upcoming season. I'm going to go watch a bunch of highlights now to get me fired up for more of the season ahead here in the association. That's going to do it for today's show. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.